Just off the cuff, this is a video letter to the President of the United States of America. Today is June 4th, 2023. Mr. President, I know that you have announced your intention to run for a second term. I am here to implore you not to do that. And I'll explain to you why. You might be asking yourself, well, who is this guy? My name is Anthony Smith. I am a leadership coach after many years in two multinational companies. What I do today is I help entrepreneurs to structure the work and the workflow in their companies and manage and motivate their people to become better leaders. And one of the things that many entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with is how to give feedback. Because you have, when you manage people, you have to give feedback, sometimes positive feedback and also sometimes negative feedback, but sometimes they don't know how to give that negative feedback. So one of the things that I always tell them, which is what I want to do here, because I'm going to give you some feedback, hoping that you will embrace it. And that feedback, especially if it's negative, I always say, don't attack the person, but talk about what the person is doing that you don't like or you don't think is a good idea or that you want them to change. And so I want to preface what I'm about to say in the same way, because this is not an attack on Joe Biden. This is about what President Joe Biden is intending to do that I don't agree with. And I know that I'm speaking for a lot of other people because I've seen the polls and I know that you've heard about this, that a lot of people don't think that it's a good idea for you to run for a second term. But I'd like to explain to you why that is. Uh, you know, it's no secret. We have seen, and let's just make this a hypothetical situation, but that's really real. So let's say we're talking about a person, and this person is 80 years old, and he's the president of the United States, and we have seen, at least that's my perception, and I might be saying some things here, Mr. President, that aren't true, because you have more information than I do. But I'm telling you, I would like you to know what I have perceived. Okay? And what I perceive is based on what I've seen. Okay? That may or may not be in line with the truth, but it's what I've seen. And what I've seen, my perception is that over the last couple of years, since this person has been in office, this 80-year-old person who's now 80 years old, who's in office, he's not as mentally sharp as he once was. He's not as physically mobile as he once was. He has fallen several times. And those things are just not, in my mind, are just not becoming of someone who is in that office. Okay? Now, again, this is not about the man, because it's normal that when people age, they have these issues. It's just normal. It's normal. If you ask me, and I know that if you ask a lot of other Americans, and probably other people around the world who have a great deal of respect for the United States of America, that's not the kind of person who has those qualities that we would like to see represent this great nation. Now, I know that there's more to it than just the appearance. I know that, Mr. President. I know that. It's really about the results that you get. I understand that. But I'm also thinking about something else. I'm thinking about this person, this 80-year-old man who, like I said, is not as mentally sharp as he once was. We've seen him bumble his words. We've seen him forget things, really, really simple things. We've seen him mess up when he goes off teleprompter. We've seen him sleeping in meetings. We've seen him fall. We've seen all these things. And so this is the same person who wants to run for a second term. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he wants to run for a second term, but, so what does that mean? He's going to have to go on the campaign trail. He's going to have to debate, go up against some sharks. They're going to come at this person. They're going to come at him with all the guns firing, all barrels firing. And so that alone, thinking about an 80-year-old man who's going to have to travel all over the country and campaign to give speeches and be sharp. And also, this person is also going to have to debate. He's going to have to prepare for these debates. And not only that, he's still going to have to perform the duties of the presidency of the United States of America. And so I'm wondering, is this person going to be able to do that effectively? And when necessary, given all those issues that I just talked about, stand up toe to toe, look in the eye of some of the strongest world leaders and say, without even saying anything, just look them in the eye and say, we are the United States of America. I don't see it, Mr. President. I just don't see it. But that's what I would like to see. And I know that I'm speaking for a lot of other people who believe the same thing. But then we're not even finished yet. Because if things go well, if he gets through, this person gets through the campaign and does well on those debates and actually wins the election, he's got 4 more years to go. 4 more years. Mr. President, this person will be 86 years old or something around that age, if he even makes it through that. And so when I'm thinking about all these issues, I'm thinking it's just normal, it's just natural that a person who's that age, who has these issues already, who we've seen, at least it's my perception, we've seen his mental sharpness decline over the last couple of years. We've seen his mobility decline over the past couple of years. We see how he moves. He's just not, we see he can't seem to keep his attention in certain situations and can't seem to remember certain things in certain situations. I'm just thinking, is that going to get better over the next 4 years? And so this person might say, well, yeah, but don't worry about it because we're going to leave, if something would ever happen to me, we're going to leave the country in really good hands. And so if that's the something that this person is going to say, I'm like, so who are you going to leave it to? The vice president? Again, it's not about the person. It's just, I just can't see it, Mr. President. Can't see it. And so you might not care. I thought about just writing a letter and sending it to the White House, but I thought, that's just easy for them to just throw that out. I want people to see this because, back in the day, we used to, if we wanted to, to support an idea, get people to support an idea, we used to, send out a petition to get people to sign the petition. Today, it's a lot easier just to get people to comment. So I'm asking whoever's watching this video who happens to agree with what I'm saying to please sign this petition and leave a comment. And when Mr. President, the President Joe Biden, sees this, I'm hoping that he will look at this and realize that there's a lot of people who are against his running for a second term. Now, let me tell you this, Mr. President. I'm not saying that you have to stay, that I would like to see you just exit from the picture altogether. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you can't add value to the next presidency. I'm not saying that. I just don't think that personally, it's a good idea for you to be on the front line. So here's what, I'm going to tell you a little story. It's a true story. And then I'm going to relate this to what I have to say to you, Mr. President. And I'm saying this, again, this is with all due respect. I have the greatest respect for what you have done for this country. I don't think there are very many people who can say that they have done what you have done as much as you have done for this country. Now, was I always in agreement with what you said? No. Even if you were to run for another 4 years, would I always be in agreement with? No. But I think that you put your heart and soul into it. I think that you did things in the best interest of the country, and I respect you for that. And also another thing that I didn't say is I'm not here as a Democrat and I'm not here as a Republican. I personally, I'm sick of the bickering between the two parties. I am sick of it. I just want what's best for the country. My parents were staunch Democrats, and I used to think that I was a staunch Democrat too. But what I realized over the years is I just want what's best for the United States. And I also realized over the years that Republicans have good ideas too. And sometimes Democrats have good ideas too. So let's put all this aside. I know it's not possible, but it would be so nice if we could just get along and just do the things that are right for the country instead of worrying about what your constituents want, and just do the right thing. But anyway, that's another video, another issue. So the little story that I wanted to tell you is this. When I used to work in two multinational companies, like I said, and I remember I got promoted once, and I got promoted several times, but in this particular time, I got promoted to have a position as the sales director in the country that I was living in at the time. And I remember that I had went to the first meeting, the first international meeting for this new role in my new role. And I remember there was a lot of people. There was all the people who had my role in the different countries, and then there were our staffs were there. And I remember standing in this big conference room, and I was looking across the room, and I saw the senior vice president of Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and general manager of Europe. And he saw me, our eyes met from across the room. He called me over. I went over to him. He shook my hand. He congratulated me. And the first thing after that he said, Mr. President, guess what it was? He said, I want you to do me a favor. And I said, of course I will. What can I help you with? He said, I want you to start looking for your successor. And I was a little taken back by that. I was a little startled because I thought, and I even asked him, I said, did you guys change your mind about me? And he said, no, not at all. He said, but we know already that you're probably going to be in this role for 2 to 3 years, and then we're going to move you someplace else so that you can get more experience and a broader experience in the company to help you to grow. And he said, when that moment comes for us to move you, I would like to have somebody already groomed and ready to take on your position. So I would like you to start looking for that person now. And so, Mr. President, I would like to ask you to do the same thing, to take a step back and to start grooming someone else. Let some other Democrat, as the leader of the Democratic Party, sometimes leadership means, and I know that I don't want to teach you anything, but I know from experience that sometimes leadership means that we don't have to lead in the front line. Sometimes it's about letting others do the job. And so maybe, and all I'm doing is just asking you to think outside the box. Instead of running for a second term, maybe there's somebody else in the Democratic Party that you could work alongside of. Maybe work behind the scenes to help them to win the reelection. Not the reelection, win the election. Okay? And so I just couldn't go on without saying something. And so I'm hoping that this message doesn't fall on deaf ears. And I hope that you will seriously consider. Because if you ask me, I just think that, if I think about what the messages or the job that you could do if you were maybe 15, 20 years younger, and I think about the way that like the issues that I talked about before, the way you move, the way you think, your mental sharpness, all that, maybe in another capacity, you could give even more value. You could be even of a greater impact. So I would just like to ask you just to think about that. And this is from an American citizen down to the bone. I've been living outside the country for a while, but I am American down to the bone. And I care about what happens in the United States, in my country. So I don't want to ramble on. That's my message. I hope that you will take into consideration what I have to say. And here's just one last thing, Mr. President. When the latest episode of you falling, apparently tripping over a sandbag or something, when we get a message that comes out from the White House saying that he's okay, it's almost like insulting our intelligence. Because things like that, everybody trips and falls sometimes. Everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but many people, that happens. But when we see it happen again and again and again, when you fall up the steps, or when you've fallen down like this, or like the other things that I talked about, there's symptoms, there's signs in many of our minds that you're not okay, or you're not 100%. So please, I understand the political, I worked in a multinational company, and I realize that sometimes you have to be diplomatic when you say things, and sometimes you say things that even aren't true, because you don't want to create panic, mass panic, much like what was done probably sometimes during the COVID situation. But realize this, please, Mr. President, that if you just tell us that everything is okay, when in our minds it's not okay, and if you really want, if that's really the truth, if you really are okay, then you're going to have to, if you really want to convince us, if you care about really making us believe that you're okay, you're going to have to do something else. You're going to have to communicate that in a different way other than just saying he's okay, because it's just not believable. You see what I'm saying? It's just not believable. So, I don't know, it was Einstein or Confucius who said that, the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same things over and over again and expect different results. If you keep communicating to us in the same way, when obviously something is wrong, then, you're going to keep getting the same results, and you're going to keep having people who don't believe you. So if it's true, then please find another way to communicate it to us so that we can believe it, so it can be believable. All right? So, Mr. President, I'm done. It's been almost 18 minutes now. I didn't think I was going to talk this long. I hope you listen to this. And I'm rooting for you. I really am. I'm rooting for you, and I'm rooting for the United States of America. When I say I'm rooting for you, I'm not saying that I'm going to be voting Democratic or I'm going to be voting Republican. That's not what I'm saying. I'm rooting for the man, Joe Biden. Because like I said, I appreciate what you've done. I think it's honorable, everything that you've done. But I think it's just time to take a step back and to leave it to someone else. And there's a whole lineup of Democrats in your party who would love to have the opportunity. So, it's time for some new young blood now, Mr. President. Okay? Take care of yourself. And anyway, all the people who are watching this video, let me know what you think. But let me tell you this. I'm just going to leave this one message, and this message isn't for the president. This message is for you who are thinking about leaving a comment. Don't come at me with some hate stuff, because this is not about this. I don't want hate mail. I don't want obscene comments. I don't want derogatory comments. I want constructive comments. So you might not agree with me, and that's fine, but just say it in a way that is respectable, all right? Because I would respect you, okay? That's it. Done. See you guys later. Mr. President, I salute you as a former Air Force veteran. I salute you, and that's it. Take care.